All right, so let's go through the free response problems. Elephants sometimes damage trees in Africa. It turns out that elephants dislike bees. They recognize beehives in areas where they're common and avoid them. So could this be used to keep elephants away from trees? A group in Kenya placed active beehives in some trees, empty beehives in others. Will elephant damage be less in trees with hives? Will even empty hives keep elephants away? Researchers want to design an experiment to answer these questions using 72 acacia trees. Identify the experimental units, treatments, and the response variable. So what's our experimental unit? Is it the tree or the elephant?
Elephant.
No. The elephant.
Okay. I see you could go a few different ways, but probably how we're going to quantify this at the end is by checking the trees and comparing. All right, so I'm going to say the trees. All right, but you could probably argue this to elephants. All right, what's your treatment?
Bees.
All right, so we could have full hives or empty hives. Could we have no hives?
Yes.
Should we?
Yes.
All right, so to compare it to before. So we could have no hives. All right, and then what's the response variable?
If the elephants keep away or not.
Still away? So we're going to measure that by distance or by damage?
Damage.
Okay, so response is damage level. Sorry, that doesn't look... What is that? All right. Okay, so now we're going to describe how we'd carry out that experiment. Especially if we're including a no hives, then we want that to reflect, include a description of how the treatment should be assigned. So randomly assign. We won't go into right now how it would be randomly. Do we want even numbers across all three possibilities?
Yes.
So it divides nicely, 24 acres each. Of real hives, or real beehives, empty hives, and no hives. All right. And then what? Yeah, we don't really have a set time, so we'll just say after some time.
After a week.
Okay. Compare damage level on trees. All right, we kind of saw a free response. Anytime they ask you to do an experiment, make sure you talk about what the participants will be, kind of like we did in A, but then how those treatments will be assigned, and then what are you comparing at the end. It's kind of the same answer as A, just wrapping it up in a paragraph form. Any questions on number 11? All right, number 12. A 2008 New York Times article on public opinion talked about steroids. The survey found that 34% of adults think that at least half of Major League Baseball players use steroids to enhance their athletic performance. Another 36% thought about a quarter of MLB players use steroids. 8% had no opinion. And then the Times actually reported how it was conducted. It's based on telephone interviews conducted March 15th through March 18th with 1,067 adults throughout the United States. The sample of telephone numbers called was randomly selected by a computer with a list of more than 42,000 active residential exchanges across the country. So an exchange would often be not the area code, but the 3 digits after the area code. That's your exchange. All right. The exchanges were chosen to ensure that each region of the country was represented in proportion to its population. Then they used random digits. In each household, one adult was designated by a random procedure to be the respondent for the survey. All right, so what do you think? Why was the sampling method used, not a simple random sample?
Because they didn't have people to sample from.
Okay, but they went in and they did reach out to people.
But people there though, like friends or so they had to go out and get them themselves.
Okay, but they used random calls, so the random is there. But why is it not simple random? Right. They first chose exchanges. All right. A representative list of exchanges. So it's not exactly what we see with a cluster, right? But it's closest to a cluster. Maybe you'd say a multi-stage, right? Because they're taking a cluster of just a few exchanges, and then within that, they're taking a simple random sample. All right, so more like a cluster sample. So why was one adult chosen at random in each household? Okay. I like that. There's probably a few different ways you can go. Okay, if you're going to say that, dive in deeper, say that males are more likely and not representative of all adults. Males are more likely to say there's steroids going on because they pay attention to more baseball. That kind of sounds a little sexist, but you could say that. All right. Might even say something about would people in bigger households might otherwise be overrepresented. Meaning, if instead of choosing one adult, what if I called and I said I want to speak to every adult? Well, suddenly you're more likely to get brought into this if you live in a big household because they happen to call your number and then everyone in your house gets a strong opinion there. Right? And then explain how undercoverage could lead to bias in the sample survey. Thoughts? So the undercoverage we know is not all exchanges were called. All right. So possibly, you can go either way here. Baseball teams. Baseball team cities, I guess. Were chosen with more positive outlook on baseball. Any questions about this problem? I know this is one of the ones that's a little uncomfortable because you're kind of hypothetically throwing out these situations. All right, so I have to be real careful when I grade and make sure that you're just coming up with a good example. It doesn't have to be my example. All right, we just got a few more minutes, so let's try to finish with the last one, and then we'll post this. Many people start with a jolt of caffeine from coffee or soft drink. Most experts agree that people who take in large amounts of caffeine each day may suffer from physical withdrawal symptoms if they stopped ingesting their usual amounts of caffeine. Researchers recruited 11 volunteers who were caffeine dependent and who were willing to take part in a caffeine withdrawal experiment. The experiment was conducted on two two-day periods that occurred 1 week apart. During one of the two-day periods, each subject was given a capsule containing the amount of caffeine normally ingested by that subject in one day. During the other study period, the subjects were given placebos. The order in which subjects received the two types of capsules was randomized. The subjects' diets were restricted during each of the study periods. At the end of each two-day study period, subjects were evaluated using a tapping task in which they were instructed to press a button 200 times as fast as they could. So how and why was blocking used in the design of this experiment? Blocking? Is there blocking? All right. If you're going to say there's blocking, you're saying there's only one block. All right. So it's not even really blocking, but they did want to make sure they were looking at a certain population. All right. They were looking at people with high levels of caffeine. All right, so why did researchers randomize the order in which subjects received the two treatments? So ones that they don't know, but even if they don't know, maybe they all get placebo the first week and caffeine the second week. Okay. Yeah, but specifically, I still feel like we'd get side by side. I wonder if after they've done the tapping task once, when they get to the next week, if it's going to be different, regardless of the results. All right, so we're kind of randomizing exposure to the tapping task. All right, and then finally, could this experiment been carried out in a double-blind manner?
Yes.
Yes. All right, and we got to go ahead and wrap it up. But you definitely could have made sure the researchers weren't aware and that they were collecting these results anonymously. Great job. We'll wrap it up.